Archiving history. Let's explore.
For centuries, people spoke of it as if it were a myth, a place so distant, so mysterious, its very name became shorthand for the edge of the world. Timbuktu was not some mirage in the desert. It was a city of scholars, a crossroads of gold and ink, and during a time when Europe still struggled to emerge from plague and feudalism, Timbuktu was building libraries. In the 13th century, West Africa was alive with movement. Caravans moved slowly across the Sahara, carrying salt, cloth, ivory, and gold. Nomadic traders brought goods from as far away as Cairo, Fez, and even India. Timbuktu sat at the edge of the Niger River in present-day Mali. It was a small but rising settlement with a perfect location. Bridging the desert to the north and the fertile interior to the south, it soon became more than a trade post. It became a lodestone of knowledge. By the mid-1200s, Timbuktu had been absorbed into the expanding Mali Empire, one of the largest and most powerful states on the continent. Then came the ruler who would turn wealth into power, and power into purpose. Mansa Musa, the 10th emperor of Mali, wasn't born into legend. He built it, step by step, city by city, and scroll by scroll. He inherited not only a throne, but a vast economic engine fueled by salt, ivory, copper, and most of all, gold. Mali's gold mines, particularly those at Bambouk and Bouré, supplied nearly half of the world's gold at the time. These were controlled, taxed, and guarded under Musa's reign. But Musa didn't just hoard his empire's wealth, he used it to shape history. In 1324, he set out on a pilgrimage to Mecca, a journey of over 3,000 miles. He took with him an entourage of tens of thousands, soldiers, officials, griots, enslaved people, and merchants. His caravan carried so much gold that he caused inflation in Cairo and Medina by oversupplying the markets. The pilgrimage was not just spiritual, it was diplomatic. Musa used the journey to forge alliances, to recruit scholars, and to buy rare manuscripts. In every city he passed, he left an impression of Mali as powerful, literate, and devout. When he returned to Mali, he settled many of these scholars throughout the empire, some in the capital at Niani, others in regional centers. But Timbuktu, with its growing reputation, received the most distinguished minds of them all. Mansa Musa's pilgrimage to Mecca had announced Mali's power to the world, but what he built after returning home was far more lasting. He didn't rule with gold alone, he ruled with ideas. Musa used his fortune to reshape the empire's identity, establishing Mali as a center of Islamic governance, education, and cultural exchange. He commissioned the construction of monumental mosques, legal courts, and madrasas across key cities. In Timbuktu, he ordered the building of the Jingo-Riber Mosque, designed by the Andalusian architect Abu Ishaq al-Sahili, one of the many skilled craftsmen he had brought back from Cairo. But the mosque was more than a place of prayer. It became a center for instruction, where imams taught not only religious texts, but astronomy, law, and mathematics. He strengthened Sankour, a local mosque that would evolve under his funding and reforms into one of the most renowned universities in the Islamic world. It operated under a decentralized model, where scholars attracted students based on their reputation. As the scholars' following grew, so did the prestige of the school. Under Musa's reforms, scholarship became a profession. Copyists, legal advisors, and theologians could rise to influence based on their knowledge, not just their lineage. And students came not only from Mali, but from across North and West Africa to study there. The empire began to document its own laws, issue edicts in Arabic, and correspond with rulers as far as Morocco and Egypt. Musa wasn't just building prestige, he was standardizing governance and connecting Mali to the broader Islamic world. His death, around 1337, did not halt the work. His successors maintained his investments, what he had begun, an empire of wealth rooted in knowledge, had taken hold. And nowhere did that vision shine brighter than in Timbuktu. By the 15th century, Timbuktu had become a hub not only of trade, but of learning. Mosques doubled as schools, homes housed private libraries. Isankor Madrasa, backed by royal funding, operated as a university where students studied law, astronomy, mathematics, medicine, and philosophy. Thousands of manuscripts were copied by hand, carefully written in Arabic and regional languages like Songhai, Tamashek, and Fulani. Subjects ranged from legal codes to star charts, from botanical medicine to poetry. In the Sahel, African scholars debated theology with their peers in Cairo. They studied medicine described by Persians and Greeks. They preserved works that would be lost in other parts of the world, and they did it in their own script, in their own voice. By the early 1400s, the vision planted by Mansa Musa had fully taken root. Timbuktu was no longer just a center of exchange. It had become one of the most respected scholarly cities in the Islamic world. Mosques were not only places of worship, but hubs of instruction, and homes, particularly among the city's elites, doubled as private academies, each filled with handwritten texts passed down through generations. At the center stood the university, supported by both royal and private patrons. Rather than a single building, it was a constellation of scholars, each attracting students, hosting debates, and issuing certifications based on mastery of the material. Subjects spanned far beyond theology. Students studied law, based on the Maliki school of Islamic jurisprudence, astronomy, using charts and treatises adapted for desert navigation, mathematics, in part, to support commerce and inheritance laws, medicine, drawing from North African, Greco-Roman, and local traditions, and of course, literature and poetry, written in both Arabic and African language. Entire industries formed around the manuscript economy. Scribes trained for years to perfect their handwriting. Ink was made locally from plant dyes and minerals. Books were bought, traded, copied, and inherited as symbols of prestige. By the 16th century, Timbuktu held hundreds of thousands of manuscripts, many of which still exist today, covering everything from philosophy and pharmacology to weather patterns and social customs. Timbuktu was never isolated. It was deeply enmeshed in an intellectual network stretching across the Islamic world, from Fez and Cairo in the north to Mecca in the east. Letters traveled with merchants, books were exchanged across generations, debates held in Mali echoed in Morocco. And what's most remarkable is this: the knowledge was African, the handwriting, the commentary, the questions. It was produced by West Africans for West Africans in a voice that was both local and global. By the late 1500s, power in the region had shifted. The Songhai Empire had replaced Mali as West Africa's dominant force, and Timbuktu became part of its territory. Under Songhai rule, Timbuktu continued to thrive as a center of scholarship and trade, though its independence began to wane. In 1591, Moroccan forces, backed by firearms and foreign mercenaries, invaded from the north. The sacking of Timbuktu marked the end of its political autonomy. Scholars were imprisoned, manuscripts were looted, and the city's leadership collapsed. But Timbuktu did not disappear. Its libraries remained. Its schools, though weakened, endured. And through local families, scholars, and merchants, the traditions of learning carried on, even under military occupation and shifting rulers. Timbuktu's influence, once state-sponsored, became grassroots. It was no longer an imperial jewel. It became something more resilient, a cultural legacy protected by the people themselves. In 2012, over 400 years after the Moroccan invasion, Timbuktu once again came under threat, this time not from armies of conquest, but from armed fundamentalists. Islamist militants affiliated with Ansar Dine and Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb swept through northern Mali. They imposed a harsh version of Sharia law, destroying Sufi shrines and declaring Timbuktu's ancient manuscripts to be heretical. They began burning libraries, but the people of Timbuktu refused to let their history be erased. At the center of a daring resistance was Abdel Kader Haidara, a librarian and scholar who coordinated a secret operation to smuggle the manuscripts out of the city. Families hid the books in boxes, rice sacks, even donkey carts. Over months, they quietly moved more than 350,000 manuscripts to safety in southern Mali. It was one of the largest and most courageous cultural rescue missions in modern history. And it wasn't done by governments. It was done by the people. Timbuktu is more than a place. It is a story, a reminder that civilization can bloom in the desert, that ideas can outlast empires, and that books can be more powerful than borders. For centuries, West African scholars preserved astronomy, ethics, mathematics, and medicine, not in silence, but in conversation with the world. Their words filled libraries when other regions were burning theirs. And when armed men came with matches, ordinary people chose to protect parchment instead of property. What does that say about the value of knowledge? What would you risk to save your culture? And what stories still wait to be uncovered in the sands of the Sahel? Would you like to learn more? Check out our website and subscribe at archivinghistory.com.